everybody. We're going to be talking about systems in biology today. So, when we're talking about systems on Earth, the whole Earth is a system, and it's interesting to think about the different ways the systems are organized on Earth, and how everything is really connected together. And that's really what a system is. It's a bunch of working parts that connect together and work together. So when we think about this little system, hornworms, which are caterpillars, they're caterpillars of moths, and they're big moths. The caterpillars are about 4 inches long, and they're like a finger, and they turn into these beautiful moths that are very large. But people don't like them too much because they do eat their tomatoes. But is this hornworm and a tomato a system? Are they actually working together in some way? And if they are, could we make a model of that system? So, in honesty, a hornworm is its own system. It's a bunch of little organs working together, and they make up the little organism that is the hornworm. And the tomato plant is a system. It's its own individual organism, which is a system. And then together, working together, they do form a system. So if you think about if a hornworm is eating a tomato for energy, where does the tomato get the energy from? And you're probably thinking to yourself right now, it would be from the sun. And that's right, because plants do photosynthesis, so they get energy from the sun. And then the hornworm eats the tomato. And then what if a big bird came by and ate the hornworm? That would be a model showing, we could draw that as a model showing the transfer of energy from the sun to the tomato, to the hornworm, to the bird. And that's a food chain. So that would be a kind of system in itself. So again, as I said before, a system is a set of interacting components that work together, and they exist on all scales. They can be very tiny, like an atom, all the way up to the universe, so huge. And they can be living or non-living. So if we think about some of the systems around us, we probably would think of things like this computer is a system. Your game system at home, your phone is a system. All those different things are systems because they made of parts that work together. All systems have boundaries and components. So, for example, the solar system has a boundary. The edge of the solar system is its boundary. So I think that the dwarf planet Pluto is the end of the solar system, but there's also like an asteroid belt out there. I think it's called the Kuiper asteroid belt or something like that. So that's also a boundary to the solar system. When we think about a boundary for our little food chain, that would be the edge, the highest that it could go. So whatever eats the bird, and whatever ate the bird, and wherever it stops, that's the boundary of the system. Systems also have inputs and outputs. So something that's an input is something that goes in, and an output that is something that comes out. So if we think about our cell phones, for example, a cell phone has a signal, which is an input, and it's converted into vibrations inside the phone. All the little mechanics and machinery that work together take that signal, and they change it into vibrations that come into your ear as a sound. Now, your ear perceives that sound, and your brain figures it out, and that's what you hear. And so the output would be whatever the vibrations are that are coming out of your phone. But then it goes into your ear, so that would be an input, and then into your brain, which outputs a message about what the person or whoever was saying on the other side of the phone. So systems all have inputs and outputs. So we're not going to do that. Also, there are things that are closed and open systems. They can be categorized as open and closed based on what goes in and out. If a system is completely confined, meaning everything that goes in and out is just stuck in that one little system and nothing is escaping and nothing new is coming in, then that's a closed system. An open system is something that has something come in from the outside and then things can leave. So, for example, a human being is an open system because we can take in energy and food and we have to breathe in oxygen. And then when we breathe out, we're losing carbon dioxide and heat energy and water vapor. So we're taking in things from the external and we're putting things back out as well. So we are not a closed system. So those are just some examples of open and closed systems. So if you want to think about what these particular systems would they be open or closed? Systems also have controls. Sometimes you can control the inputs of a system or the outputs as well. So if you think about a thermostat is like it makes sure that the temperature of the heater or the air conditioning goes on when you want it to at a certain temperature. You can actually put the temperature on there that you want, and it helps to keep your house at that temperature. So that brings us to this thing called a feedback. A feedback is when one part of the system is kind of triggered. It triggers another part of the system. So for a thermostat, like right now, I'm blasting the air conditioner because it's 100 and something degrees outside. And every time my house drops below 78 degrees, the air will come back on. Once it gets to that temperature, it turns off. And then if it gets too hot again, it will come back on. So that's a feedback loop. So some systems have that. Not all thermostats have that, but some do. All right. Now, in your book, you'll notice that in this section of the book, there's this image, and it's talking about a scuba diver. And a scuba diver is a living system. And the scuba gear is a system of air exchange, right? So when you breathe it in, when you breathe the air in, it goes into your lungs. And so what I want you to do on there is to type in what are the inputs and outputs of the scuba system interacting with the human being. So you're going to type that into your ebook. All right. So systems can also often be represented by models. Now, model is a pattern or plan representation or description designed to show the structure of workings of an object, system, or concept. So you can make, like we talked about our model of the food chain, that would be a conceptual model. All right, we basically just drew arrows from the sun to the plant, to the caterpillar, to the bird. That's a conceptual model. There's also physical models that you can build, like the structure of a DNA molecule. There's mathematical models. You can actually prove something mathematically by making sure that, like, by adding in numbers and showing how the pattern works. And you can actually do a simulation. And this is simulations are really how the weather works, how weather reporting works. So meteorologists, who are people that study the weather, they understand how to plug in all the information for the weather, and out pops a model of what the weather will be. So when they told us this week, that it was going to be 117 degrees on Sunday, they knew that it was going to be 117 because they used a model. They used a computer model that predicted what the weather was going to be. So it takes a lot of input into the computer, and then output is the prediction of the weather. So when we talk about systems in biology, systems in biology, they have to include all the systems on the Earth, the hydrosphere, the atmosphere, the biosphere, the geosphere, which is sometimes called the lithosphere, and then the cryosphere, which is sometimes combined with the hydrosphere because it's ice. Sometimes that's all contained in the hydrosphere. And also the anthrosphere, which is human beings. How do human beings impact the Earth? So all these things are systems that we have to look at in order to get the data we need to identify patterns and be able to model and simulate them. All right. And that's really everything. Make sure that you finish the homework in the textbook. All right. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.